Vallabha Girivaradari Yasodhanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Jayarad Amadava Kunjabihari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. So thank you. Today we're going reading from the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 10, text number 19, and it's on the TV screen. So we'll first start with the Sanskrit recitation. So if you can please follow after me. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Hantate Kasyasyami Kata Divya Yatma Vibhutotaya Pradanyata Kurushesta Nastyanto Vistarasya Me. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Hantate Katayasyami Divyayatma Vibhutaya Pradanyataha Kurushestaha Nastyanto Vistarasya Me. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Hantate Katayasyami Divyayatma Vibhutaya Pradanyataha Kurushrestha Nasyanto vistarasya me. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. Hantate katayisyami. Divyatma vibhutaya. Pradanyataha kuru sresta. Nasyanto vistarasya me. So I'd like to know if anyone would like to try the Sanskrit recitation. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. Hantate katayisyami. Divyatma vibhutaya. Pradanyataha kuru sresta. Nasyanto vistarasya me. Okay. Would anyone else like to try the recitation? If you can. Okay. So, sorry, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Jnanatimiyandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chakshurun Militanyena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutaye Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharne Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Brasyatya Desatarne. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. So the translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "Yes, I will tell you of my splendorous manifestations, but only of those which are prominent, O Arjuna, for my opulence is limitless." So the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "Yes, I will tell you of my splendorous manifestations, but only of those which are prominent, O Arjuna, for my opulence is limitless." And purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. It is not possible to comprehend the greatness of Krishna and His opulences. The senses of the individual soul are limited and do not permit him to understand the totality of Krishna's affairs. Still, the devotees try to understand Krishna, but not on the principle that they will be able to understand Krishna fully, or at any specific time, or any state of life. Rather, the very topics of Krishna are so relishable that they appear to the devotees as nectar. Thus, the devotees enjoy them. In discussing Krishna's opulences and His diverse energies, the pure devotees take transcendental pleasure. Therefore, they want to hear and discuss them. Krishna knows that living entities do not understand the extent of His opulences. He therefore agrees to state only the principal manifestation of his different energies. The word pradanyataha, principle, is very important because we can understand that only a few of the principal details of the Supreme Lord for his features are unlimited. It is not possible to understand them all, and vibhuti, as used in this verse, refers to the opulences by which he controls the whole manifestation. In the Amar Kosha dictionary, it is stated that vibhuti indicates an exceptional opulence. The impersonalist or pantheist cannot understand the exceptional opulences of the Supreme Lord, nor the manifestations of his divine energies. Both in the material world and in the spiritual world, his energies are distributed in every variety of manifestation. Now Krishna is describing what can be directly perceived by the common man. Thus part of his variegated energy is described in this way. So the translation one more time. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "Yes, I will tell you of my splendorous manifestations, but only of those which are prominent, O Arjuna, for my opulence is limitless." So Krishna is here speaking to Arjuna. He's speaking about his opulences. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and as he states, his opulences are limitless. So it's described that Krishna has three primary energies. So this is his internal energy, his external energy, and his marginal energy. So how do we understand this? Is that Krishna's internal energy is the spiritual energy, that which comprises the spiritual world. And Krishna's external energy, that's his material energy, so that's this material world. And then his marginal energy. So Krishna's marginal energy, that's us. We're the marginal energy, which is the souls who are what we call the fallen conditioned souls. So it's said that this marginal energy, it's described as like it's like on the bank on a river, that it's neither, it's basically on the edge. It's on the shore and the water. So this is like us. We can be in the spiritual world or the material world. So Krishna is Achyutya, which means infallible, and we're Achyutya, which is fallible. So all of us, none of us are perfect, but we can become, perfect in our own sense, but we'll always be fallible. The aim of life is to actually become self-realized. So that's actually know ourselves as an eternal fragment of Krishna. So Krishna says, Mami Vamsa Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatanaha, that all the living entities are my eternal parts and parcels. So we're all parts of Krishna. And this is important to understand, that being a part and parcel of Krishna does not mean like we are the drop of water and then we'll become one with the ocean. But no, it's described like we are like a drop of water and Krishna is the ocean. But we're eternally, this is just an analogy, but we are eternally distinct from Krishna. That Krishna is the Supreme Person, and ultimately it's about that personal relationship. So Krishna is the Supreme Person, and we're actually parts. We emanate from Krishna and are these parts and parcels which are his energy. So we might have the same qualities as Krishna, just as the drop of water has, the salt or the H2O, and but this drop of water can never be called ocean. So that's our position, and that's where we become most happy. That everything actually belongs to Krishna, including us. There's one saint, Acharya in our tradition. He's Bhaktivedanta Thakur on the right, but he said, I became supremely happy knowing I no longer belong to myself. And so that's very important, that this is where our real, actual happiness comes from. We can't actually be happy on the bodily concept of life, because it's simply not natural for us. It's what's described as like a fish out of water. So in that same verse, Krishna says, but these living entities, they are struggling very hard for existence, and are struggling with the mind and with the six senses, which include the mind. So that's our condition in this world, that somehow or other we've become identified with that this is me, my body, myself, my family, my country, my nation, and this is the cause for division in society, and this is a cause for our bondage. We may take great pride in our country, in our family, but ultimately we have a bigger family, and ultimately we're all family. So this was Srila Prabhupada, what he said when he actually took the renounced order of life. He had to leave that family, but he had to actually, embrace the whole world. So that's what we have to come to, that vision, is to actually see everything in relation to Krishna. So that's how we'll actually become, fully happy, because everyone is actually very, very dear to Krishna. But if we're simply looking after ourselves, if we don't actually appreciate others and respect them in relation to Krishna, then we'll find it very difficult to make progress in any walk of life, but especially spiritual life. So that's a key aspect of actually trying to advance in devotional service. So we chant every morning, Trinada pi sunishena, Tarora pi sahishnuna, Amanina Amanadena, Kirtanyada Sadari. So that one should think oneself lower than the straw on the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, and so on like that. And it says, the translation is basically that one who thinks oneself lower than the straw on the street is more tolerant than a tree, and can offer all respects to everyone. That person can chant the holy names of the Lord constantly. So there's a direct direction between actually giving respect to others and actually chanting. So Krishna, this is how we actually can become dear to Krishna, is actually when we actually are respectful of everyone in relation to Krishna, that's what Krishna actually, how he actually becomes pleased. And that's the way of devotional service, is to actually to become a servant. So we try and become the servant of the servant of the servant. So from Krishna and the disciplic succession is that the parampara of gurus, everyone will just consider themselves a servant, and as it goes on, they become the servant of the servant of the servant. So in our position, we have to become the servant of the servant of the servant, and that's what will actually please Krishna. So this is how Krishna actually bestows his mercy, and then this is when Krishna's holy name will manifest, and then we can actually chant constantly, because when we don't respect Krishna, respect Krishna as parts and parcels, every living entity, including this world, is a living entity, Bhakti Devi, so everything is actually sacred and in relation to Krishna. So Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Ham sarvasya pravabo mata sarvam pravatrate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvita. So Krishna says, everything emanates from me. So everything spiritual and material emanates from him. The wise who perfectly know this engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. So when we can actually get this vision that everything is in relation to Krishna, and everything is actually meant to serve Krishna, then we can actually make a solid and concrete advancement in devotional service. Shri Shri Radha Gokulananda ki, Shri Shri Sita Ram Laxman Hanuman ki, Shri Shri Gauranitai ki. So naturally in this world, we become, from the moment we're born, we naturally come into the bodily concept of life, and the senses are naturally engaged in, what is it? Sorry, excuse me. Sorry, I just I can't hear properly, sorry. Thanks. So the senses, they're naturally are just accustomed to what we actually say is enjoying. So this is what we're in this material world for, is to actually to enjoy. And this is our fallen condition, that we have this concept that we are the enjoyers and proprietors. So that we are actually, we want to be like individual lords. So we have a very big ego, false ego, and superiority complex. And this is our condition in the material world. We'll see the more one is materialistic, the more their heart will become covered, and the more hard-hearted that they'll become. And this is very evident that people will treat others as commodities, basically. Even we see, like for what we call the modern day farmers, who are slaughtering cows and so on like that, they'll call the cows livestock. So this is we can see how much removed they are, and the lack of empathy, that this is simply a live animal which is basically stock, which will end up stock on the shelf as well. And that's simply the mindset of materialistic person. I know naturally myself, I grew up in Ireland, and it's everyone there eats meat by naturally enough. But yeah, even me myself, growing up, I was naturally a meat eater, and even not when I was born, but my father and my grandfather were actually had a butcher shop as well, so they were actually the local butchers. So I had to my family have were very actually very much believers of meat eating and stuff like that. So it I know when I began to seek and question things, I had that realization that for me a vegetarian diet was more pure, and uh, maybe the people they wouldn't really understand so much at first, but then eventually they start to understand. It's even said that 50 years ago, uh, yeah, maybe over 50 years ago, it was barely heard of about a vegetarian cuisine in the Western world, and even since ISKCON actually started, and a whole trend has become more popular as well in terms of vegetarian restaurants, and now we have veganism and so on like that. But these are all very actually positive things in society, because these things will actually enable people to become more purified as well, um, on a vegetarian diet. But ultimately, in the Bhagavad Gita, it says, "To those who eat and don't offer it to me, they eat in truth only sin." So even plant life uh, are different species of life, and they are not to be killed whimsically. But Krishna does state in the Bhagavad Gita what he will accept if it's offered with love and devotion. So we don't want to be just vegetarian, but we want to be Krishnarian. So that's that's the goal, to actually try and actually please Krishna, and to give up the false ego that we are the doers, that we're not actually there's nothing we actually can do on our own. Everything is actually overseen by different higher living entities, which are known as the demigods. So and even these demigods, and even Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva are put within that category as well. Lord Shiva is a very special personality as well. In the spiritual world, he is the Supreme Lord, but in the material world, he's almost God but not God. So the example is given when it's like Lord Vishnu is like yogurt and like milk, and when that milk is churned into yogurt, then that's like Lord Shiva. So Lord Shiva, upon coming into this material world as Rudra, he goes through a transformation in one sense, that he's no longer the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Lord Brahma and so on, and the different demigods, they all actually they're the ones that actually operate and are like in offices. They actually preside over the elements of the material world. So even they say, even for like every movement, even blinking, we can't do without a demigod. So the demigods are the ones who are like pulling the strings. We're ultimately like, we have free will, but we have what's called minute free will, a minute independence, and that we have the ability to reason. But that minute independence is that we can actually decide who will we serve. So Krishna has given us this facility of free will, that we can decide and we can desire. Shall we actually take to the process of devotional service, Or we can decide, well, I at least seek for the truth of life and try to understand what is life all about. Or we can decide, I'm just going to have a good time in material life and enjoy my senses. But ultimately, even our faculty to reason is conditioned by the three modes of material nature, but we still have enough God-given intelligence to understand, what is right or what is wrong. Even if we don't fully understand, we still have enough intelligence on a broader scale to understand enough so we can make an endeavor towards what is right on a larger scale, and actually seek for the truth of life. I'd like to ask if there's any questions. Okay, so one thing which is important to understand, which is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, that we can't actually understand Krishna unless we take to the path of devotional service. So Krishna says in this verse that his opulences that are actually they're limitless, but we can still understand Krishna in terms of who actually Krishna is and what is actually our relationship with him. So Krishna says, Bhakti mama vijnanati yavan yaschatmi tatvato tato tat mam tatvato natva visate tadanantaram, that one can only know me as I am, the Supreme Personality, the Supreme Lord, only through the process of devotional service. And in such consciousness, one can know me as I am and becomes fit to enter into the kingdom of God. So we can only actually know Krishna through devotional service and through the mercy of the devotees. So it's the devotees that can actually impart knowledge onto us, and when devotees actually find the truth and become truth seekers, it's by the mercy of the devotees. Generally, it's generally always the case that it's by the mercy of a devotee that one will come to the path of devotional life. So it's the devotees by distributing knowledge. They do Harinam, and they propagate the movement of devotional service to actually to give mercy to those who need it, which is everyone. And so it's only by the mercy of the devotees. And when we actually are on the path of devotional service, it's also only by the mercy of the devotees that we can maintain the process of devotional service. So through the association of devotees, then we can actually keep spiritually strong. So the analogy is given in the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Ye lila amrita vine kaya yadhyana pane tabe durba bhakti durbala nartana. Sorry, I can't remember the full verse off by heart right now, but it said that basically without hearing of the pastimes of the Lord and so on, such as reading Sri Prabhupada's books or engaging in devotional service, one will become weak and fall down, the same way as one will become weak without drinking water. So, and also another analogy was given that devotional service is like boiling a kettle. If you boil the kettle for 10 seconds and you walk away and come back 15 minutes later, and then you boil it again for another 30 seconds and walk away again and come back an hour later, the water won't be boiled. And so the process of devotional service has to be constant. And it said that the chanting of the holy name, ultimately we try and chant as much as we can, which means, my dear Lord, please engage me in your devotional service. So it's Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So it's mentioned in the Purana that the process of chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, that it's best to actually, I'm not sure if it's the 6 Goswamis have mentioned this, but it's better to actually chant continuously, and rather than just chant one good mantra, but to chant continuously and endeavor continuously. And that's the process, because that will keep the mind under control, and that will clean the heart as well. The holy name is like, it's Golokera Premadana, that is spiritual. It's a spiritual vibration from the spiritual world. So this chanting is it's not a mundane a word like Srila Prabhupada said, if we chant Coca-Cola time and time again, we won't be able to continue because it's mundane. But if we chant the Maha Mantra and Hare Krishna, then it will enliven us. We'll be able to chant even more actually. So that's the thing, is that bhakti breeds bhakti. So to keep on endeavoring, and then that was what will give us more and more taste. And naturally, it's like in the spiritual world, the gopis and Krishna, there's no end to the loving exchanges, that it just becomes more and more and more all the time. So it's different to the material world. And the spiritual master that I've taken shelter of, he often gives this analogy, is that the chanting of, there's some people have this logic that it's better to chant instead of chanting 5 bad mantras, it's better to chant 1 good mantra. So sometimes this can be a fair point, but so by that logic, we can just say, instead of chanting 1 full mantra not so good, it's better to just chant one line of the mantra. So some people, I believe I was in, maybe even devotees in, I think it could have been in Amsterdam or somewhere, that they were basically saying it's better to chant just 1 solid mantra. So they could just chant Hare Krishna, so 1 mantra sincerely, but it doesn't actually work like that. And so it's continuously, even though we're not able to chant so well, because it takes time and to actually to endeavor, and we have to actually fight the mind. Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur said we should beat the mind in the morning with a shoe, and I think a broomstick in the evening. So that's the nature of the mind. The mind is materially conditioned, and the mind is rebellious as well, and the mind can be our own worst enemy or our greatest friend, and generally it's our own worst enemy until we actually take to the process of devotional service, because the mind will present so many ideas about how we can actually enjoy in material life and so on. But we have to actually take shelter of spiritual teachings, spiritual authority and scriptures. So this is where the flawless knowledge comes. So Srila Prabhupada often speaks about speculation, that we don't listen to the speculation of the mind, but we actually listen to the authority of the scripture. Like one may think that cow dung, that it's dirty and so on, but we take it on scriptural authority that it's mentioned in the scriptures that cow dung is pure, and even the research shows that actually cow dung has antiseptic properties and so on, and also it's in terms of the conch shell that we say that bones and things like that are impure, but the conch shell is considered pure. So these are things that we take on the authority of scripture, and also to follow in the footsteps of those who have actually realized the knowledge, which are the previous acharyas. And so it's based on their examples and their knowledge that we can actually, and the knowledge of the scripture, that we actually have clear understanding. So it said we have to take shelter of Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. So the Guru is the spiritual master, the Sadhu is the person in Krishna consciousness, and the Shastra is the scripture. So these three together, they're like the lines on the road. I'd like to ask if there's any questions. Yes, Maji. Yeah, so I took to the. I was in my. Ultimately, I was completely aloof from spiritual life growing up. I was naturally default a Catholic. I grew up basically in a rural village, and I from Ireland, and the church was like a 5-minute walk, like just up the road from me. I don't remember being so spiritually inclined as a child, but I did ask my mother, did she ever have any ideas that I would take to this kind of life? But she said, yeah, she did tell me that I was always at the church when I was younger, but I don't recall that so much. But basically, through my teenage years, I was just completely aloof and materialistic, just basically an average person in society. And then when I was 21, that's when I first started seeking spiritual life. Seeking about truth and so on. The first book I read was called The Autobiography of a Yogi, which was by Paramahansa Yogananda of a different line, and I followed those teachings. That I was basically, that was the predominant thing in my life, was seeking, and I followed those teachings for a few years, meditating and so on, and then that's what I was naturally inclined, as I mentioned earlier about vegetarianism and so on. So I was naturally inclined to Eastern philosophy, and then I was seeking, and finally, in terms of I had like I began to see that there was proof in the pudding that the in terms of my practice was at least awakening something, but I was still quite unsure, and I had no idea of the different paths of yoga, and I was still very much materialistic and still basically seeking in the wrong places as well, and I was very much determined. I wanted to commit myself to spiritual life. So when I was must have been 26, I actually I decided I left the job I was doing, and I went to seek, but I didn't go to India straight away. I went to Europe actually, and that's where I actually I did some volunteering, and I was 3 weeks and an extra week as well added on in. So I see it as Krishna's mercy that he guided me based on my that he reciprocated with me, and that was a Bhakti Yoga ashram, which was actually Krishna consciousness. So even then, I didn't know so much about the teachings. I had no idea of the Supreme Person the Supreme Lord as a person. Still, I was probably more influenced by impersonal philosophy that God is formless. So, but I still had a conviction that this is, for some reason, I felt a conviction that this is where you need to stay and continue on this path, and so I took faith in that, and then I met the devotees in Ireland in the Dublin Temple on a Sunday Love Feast program. I spoke with a devotee there for 2 hours who had previously stayed in the manor. I told him that I wanted to stay in the temple in Dublin and kind of live like one of the monks, but he said, we can't actually keep you here. You have to have residential training. So that was in 2019 that he told me about the manor, that he was actually here for like a year or so himself, and he said it's the perfect place for me. So because the manor has training facilities, and many people come from different countries to here to learn about devotional life. So in 2019 I came here, and based on discussions with my seniors in the ashram and so on, I continued to stay here and continue in devotional life here. So that was my actual path. But thank you for asking, Krishna. Okay, so that will end today's Bhagavad Gita class. Srila Prabhupada ki, Bhagavad Gita ki, all glories to assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. And Gaur Arati will start in a minute. Thank you.
Shri Shri Radha Gokulananda ki, Shri Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman ki, Shri Gauranitai ki jai. Kripa Jaya Jaya Gaurachande Aratika Shobha. Kripa Jaya Jaya Gaurachande Aratika Shobha. Janavitata Jagamanaloba Janavitatavane Jagamanaloba chan Pame gadadara Dakini dai chan Pame gadadara Ekate Advaita Shrini Vasa Chatradara Ekate Advaita Shrini Vasa Chatradara Posi Ache Gaurachan Ratna Simhasane Posi Ache Gaurachan Ratna Simhasane Arati Korena Brahma Adi Devagane Arati Korena Brahma Adi Devagane Narahari Adi Kori Chamaradulaya Narahari Adi Kori Chamaradulaya Sanjaya Mukunda Vasu Gosadigaya Sanjaya Mukunda Vasu Gosadigaya Sanka Baje Ganta Baje Baje Karatala Sanka Baje Ganta Baje Baje Karatala Madhuramidanga Bhaje Paramarasala Sankha Bhaje Ganta Bhaje Madhu 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 Bhaje Sankha Bhaje Ganta Bhaje Madhu 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 Bhaje Madhu 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 Bhaje Madhu 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 Bhaje Bhaje Nitai Gaura Haribo 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo Nitai Gaura Haribo 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo Nitai Gaura Haribo 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo Bahu Koti Chandrajini Vadana Ujvala Chandrajini Vadana Ujvala Kala Dese Banamala Kore Bhaktivedanta Manor